microphones. Would you like to use them?
We didn't send out, we didn't.
So we are streaming. It's up to you. I think with the non-mask mandate now, that it may be a little bit clearer, but it's completely up to you guys. I put them there in case you want them. If you feel confident that you can speak loudly, you're good to
I'll
go.
try it just.
No problem. I'm always loud, never have any problems. When you manage a large group of people for so many years, I have no problem to be loud. No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
But maybe I should have sat over there. You're gonna be loud over here.
I'm good meeting. Okay, it's 9:01. Should we get the meeting started?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good
Morning.
morning.
I know it's great to have a new CDC requirement that we don't have to wear masks anymore. So we started meeting at 9:01, and I know we want to go with the old business, but before we start, I would like to welcome Larry to the committee.
Thank you very much.
And Larry, would you like to give us a just brief introduction of yourself, please?
Let's see, I've been in management positions, retail management positions for most of my working career, where part of my responsibility was preparing and reviewing monthly, quarterly, and annual budgets. And also have my own business where creating profit and loss statements for quarterly and annual basis is certainly not a problem. Not really good with English, but I'm really good with math. So that this kind of fits in where I like to be. I'm currently president of Brighton HOA. And, I've been president for a year and a half.
And how long have you lived in
I've lived in Providence for almost 3 years now.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was living in Costa Rica, where I lived full time for 6 years.
Costa Rica.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Grammar, right?
It was
So
a bit of a sacrifice for me to trade
Right.
Costa Rica for Los Angeles. Lush greenery for rocks and
Right.
desert landscape.
Right.
But I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, welcome, and we're also looking forward to have your expertise
Thank
to
you.
help. And I know we have taken steps on the finance committee's perspective to taking us to a much healthier financial status for the Providence community.
I understand.
So definitely welcome to your idea to help us out.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's go over to old business. Review and consider April 26, 2021 draft meeting minutes. Anybody got a chance to review the minutes? I reviewed them and I move we accept them. I second it. Everybody in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's go over to action items. April 2021 audit financial report. Questions? Sure, people have questions.
For April, correct?
Yes, for April.
I do have a couple.
Go ahead.
The line items that say park repairs, park general, and landscape general, those were over budget. And I know sometimes those look like maintenance items. So maybe we just need some maintenance things, or was that just a regular occurrence of payment that we don't budgeted for April, but repaired were done in April?
What is the GL code for park maintenance?
61616.
Okay, so when you guys were doing, I believe it was probably in the January meeting, you guys wanted some breakout GLs added to the budget that weren't already included. You had an all-inclusive line item for park maintenance.
Okay.
And so you guys wanted those specifically to be broken out so you knew which repairs were going to each line item. And so it shows over budget just because that wasn't a GL that was previously utilized.
Okay.
So that's why.
Same for park general and landscape.
Correct.
Those were just broken out.
Correct.
Okay. Then the other question I have is for water. obviously, 'cause that's what we're watching really close. This one went over budget by 45,891. And the only thing I can think of where it's where you talk summer, so water needs to be on a little bit more frequently, and also we do the splash pad, but that isn't the splash pad recycled water, that's not. being used.
Correct. So, and you also had, we did have a water leak, where one of the valves was stuck open. We've been in communication with Las Vegas Valley Water District because it was something that was found when management was doing a walk with Brightview. They were actually walking along Durrell, and one of the valves were stuck in the open position. And so we contacted Las Vegas Valley Water District just to let them know of the situation, that we were already aware that we had to get a leak detection company because it wasn't something that was in the irrigation itself.
Oh,
It was actually
it's not
provided
being
by-
used pad.
Correct, it's an actual like underground leak that we were able to find. So currently that area is shut off, and we're waiting for the particulars on how to get it corrected, and then we would send that over to the board for them to review, and get that taken care of.
I know last month we discussed the opportunity to reduce some greens around all the main roads. Have we submitted the idea to the board? Have people walking through or driving through all the different areas to look at opportunity to reduce costs, especially water consumption?
So currently, yes, we have started that process with Brightview. Brightview did provide the board during their last meeting an area of trees that are dying off of Severance behind, or I'm sorry, on Larry McBride, behind Weston and Bar Arbor Glen, which is where the proposed middle school is, that area, that kind of cul-de-sac, that roundabout off the farm. So the board did approve removing removing all of the trees, the affected trees that are in that area, and they are not planning on replanting. Management also walked farm last week, identified about 16 different water leaks as well as some plant foliage that could potentially not be put back once they decide to do that area. Brightview is looking at accelerating that area on farm, just because that's where a lot of our leaks are happening at this particular point. So they will be submitting that information over to the board hopefully by this week for their review.
That's good. And I think we already replaced all the Schaumburg, right? Because I know Schaumburg
Correct.
by the south side, they just finished up,
Yeah.
like, they just finished up Schaumburg. And they also starting the rail and Eagle Crest. So I would like to see from a monthly basis comparison, if we could, in addition to our financial report, can we do a comparison for water consumption from last 2 years? Because we already replaced those irrigation systems, there should be a huge water consumption reduction. So I think we should, especially by meters, if we could get a detailed report for water, then we could tell, I know we're putting what, $1.5 million to the irrigation?
That's the projected, that's not what we paid already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a huge amount
Yeah.
of money. I would like to see that, or I'm sure the board would like to see, or the committee would like to see what we spend in terms of the replacement. We have to see a huge reduction of water consumption.
Well, I think too, at this being the first year, I don't think that you're going to see it, and we talked about this at the last meeting or the meeting before. We're not gonna see it right away, especially with some of the newer plants that are being installed, because they are a new install. You're gonna have to water them more just so that the root and everything like that are saturated. So you're not gonna see the decrease or the reduction in the water immediately. I think it's something that's gonna be over time. We can definitely provide, I've already told Brightview to start providing us with the water meter reads as what they're seeing each week when they're checking it. So I will provide that as a monthly, just so that you guys can see what the water meter reads are, as well as the comparisons from, month to month for the months that we're.
I think that would be great, especially now that we're gonna scrutinize the water usage on a monthly basis. If we can see that detailed report, it would be nice to know, even though we use more water for those new plants, it's still good to see the comparison.
Okay.
For the last 2 years history versus the new meters, the new area that we replaced.
Okay, not a problem.
I just thought something, the trip said that the water leak that will go out,
Mhm.
the
we shut it off.
Oh, you shut it
Yeah, right. We was able to shut off the water meter to that area.
until right away fixes it or the water.
So we had a leak detection company come out to figure out specifically where the leak is coming from. So we're waiting for that report to come back so that we know if this is a general contractor repair, if this is a plumber repair. It just helps us gauge what expert help we need.
Okay, so the water cannot go out and into the plants or anything?
Currently, no, because you can hand water that area, so it's not a problem.
I
It's
think
not
that's
something.
something plants. that
Yeah,
they just.
absolutely.
Water, okay.
Yeah, but it's not even the area that they've done the retrofit for. Yeah, it's further up throughout.
Any other questions? Community mailings. I thought we reduced a lot of mailing. Why do we have such a usage for the last couple of months?
So I did provide you guys with a comparison last month, but this month it was significantly down. The only thing that went out for, March would have been the community mailing for the meeting, which was for I think it was $2,466 or something like that.
Okay,
But it was significantly lower because we're no longer utilizing the post. But there is still, postage and stuff like that for compliance letters and notices that we send out to the homeowners. But that line item should be significantly low, which is probably why it was on your blood bar.
There's also the April statements in there too, right?
Yes, which would have affected, well, it just depends on when the bill came in. So it could have been for April.
I know that we have a janitor for the park. So that's budget every month, right?
Mhm.
For the janitor to clean
Both.
the bathroom, both bathrooms. What's the frequency?
So they come out once a week.
Or they only come out once a week? To clean the bathroom? Wow, okay, that explains what happens. Every time when I go, it's so filthy, and I'm just thinking about the virus and all that, it's really bad, both, especially the one in Hackville, it's really bad. I think we need to, I personally, from a sanitary standpoint, or safety and health standpoint, I think the board may need to look at that. It's very dirty, that bathroom is extremely dirty.
Especially during this time of the year where there's a lot of people using the park, just with the softball, soccer, kids practicing, weather is relatively nice. That area gets used quite a bit during this time of the year, and it would make sense to have restrooms cleaned on a more frequent basis.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I'll tell you, I don't use it, but when I walk by, I just go in and glance at it. That's why I want to bring that question. I wasn't sure, and it's really bad.
Oh, I mean, we have, I directed Jody for courtesy patrol to check the bathrooms every hour on the hour so that we have a report on it, so that we have eyes and we know specifically what the bathrooms are looking like, because we do get the complaints of there isn't any soap or there is feces all over one stall or whatever the situation may be, which is why when you look at the payables, I'm like, yeah, we had a situation where we had to close down the bathroom, get the cleaning company out so that we can even open up the bathrooms. A lot of times people are stuffing stuff down the toilets and clogging the toilets, so then now that's not usable, and then other people do. It's a whole.
It's really bad. They ran out of toilet paper, but, so it's $450 a month?
So, for here, it's $295 for the Providence Center and then $225 for both of the parks.
Oh, $225.
Yeah, so each park is paying $225 for the janitorial,
Once a month,
once a month.
so it's $100 for cleaning.
Essentially.
Yeah, $112.50.
They're doing it. I mean, there's a difference between not enough and not doing it well.
So, I personally, I do like, System 4, they do have a great, rating. They do the thorough cleaning, deep clean, disinfecting and all of that kind of stuff. But like I said, again, we're only on a 1-week rotation. And so obviously, if services are needed more so, then we can definitely request that information and get an estimate for it.
situation because, when I'm just thinking about what's going on with the viruses and so many people using that, it's just.
Right, I wouldn't want to shut down because it gets them.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, and it makes it difficult too. I mean, when we did have the operations coordinator, that was something that their task would be is to go into the bathrooms, make sure that it's stocked up and stuff like that. We currently are utilizing courtesy patrol for that to help us just because they're already out there. And so obviously when they're seeing things or if it's a deficit or whatever the situation may be, whether it be a health concern, we do shut the bathrooms down so that people can't utilize them to make sure that the association isn't in any liability standpoint for the pandemic or anything like that.
Any other question on the financial report? I know, Katie sent out a lot of information that we got, you already provided detailed info. Any other questions that for the financial report?
I do. It's my understanding that we're revising the contract with Securitas to do nighttime patrols only. Is that correct?
So Securitas is no longer going to be the association's vendor come July 1. The board did make a decision to change relationships and go to Marksman Security.
And they will do just a nighttime patrol only, and it will.
No, they'll be here 24/7. It's still the 365 patrol, it's just for a lesser amount.
We're not July 1 now.
July 1, correct, yes, ma'am.
So we have a new contract, we got a new contract,
You have a new vendor,
event, yeah.
Marksman.
Okay, and how much, we say it's a huge reduction, you know, the total amount yet?
I want
We say that, yeah, I think we're not
We saved, yeah.
Yeah, I know it was
Yeah.
such a substantial amount, I just wanna, because that's when they were still negotiating, I'm not sure what's the actual, saving.
I think it's almost 300,000 that the
Okay.
association is
Yeah.
saving with the new company.
And I know, we have not used money on, social events. And I know there's been a lot of activity, I don't follow through it, I don't have time. In regard to 4th of July event, and that's been canceled.
Correct, so the board is not providing any spending to social lifestyle. So unless if there was some type of sponsor or something like that to where, we would have that sponsored, then there will be no 4th of July event, and including there is nobody to program that specific activity for the association. So without having a lifestyle director, somebody in that position to solidify those relationships, and lifestyle committee has not met, so we will not be putting on the 4th of July event.
I'm sorry.
Will we be decorating and all that? I mean, I know we're not having the big event, but are we still going to, how they put up the decorations and stuff in the fourth, or is that being doing it as well?
I have not gotten any direction on that, and I haven't either,
That hasn't come up.
yeah,
We'll talk about that.
yeah.
Should we start, like, we have something going?
Yeah, I need to,
I mean, we're still an awfully big noted community and totally. And didn't we buy new Christmas and replace Christmas and 4th of July or something?
we haven't purchased anything new. The only thing that has changed with First Choice is that we now store all of our decorations
that's
where
it. Okay.
First Choice was holding it, so,
Correct.
but no, we haven't made any calls or anything like that, but I'll definitely send an email out to the board and ask them what they
I
want.
think they should consider it. We can't, I mean, surely we can afford that.
I thought we bought some light.
Yeah.
We bought some light for, I think it was 2 years ago, because we were renting them.
So whatever has been purchased by the association is now with us. They're in the Connex boxes, so
Right,
before.
so I know we did buy some stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or, so
I
I
know
might
that
want
there
to
was
go check some of
reviews.
those storage just to see what we have before we start contracting out. If the board
Mhm.
approve, need to go through those items just to be sure. I know we discussed last couple of years, instead of renting it, we decided to purchase some items.
Okay, well, I know that I know for Easton, or not Easton, excuse me, Oxford Commons, there was the wreaths that were purchased, the Christmas tree that we put out for, hometown holidays. We purchased that, which is all in the comments boxes. I'm not sure of any lights though, but I'll double check.
Yeah, I know
on
we
that.
approved.
Okay.
I know the committee approved for the light, to be purchased.
Okay.
So I think it's those big glow.
Oh, you're talking about the balloon lights.
Yes.
Yeah, we
yes.
have those, yes,
Okay,
yeah. I'm thinking you're talking about like the decorate for
No,
the
it's a
holidays.
balloon
No,
lights,
the balloon
yeah.
lights, yes, we have those. Yeah, there was five balloon lights that was purchased that we utilized for nighttime events. But yes,
Right.
we have those.
So on the budget summary, we have social events as $128,000. You're saying that the board does not authorize any of that money to be spent on social events.
Correct, sir.
I'd like to clarify, when I watched the board meeting, and they were talking about the Fourth of July in particular, I think they were wrestling with COVID at the time. They didn't know how to plan it or to execute it because they didn't know what restrictions were going to be in place. Should we let people come? Should we only have a certain amount of people come? So that I remember them wrestling with that aspect, and I know that we had talked about wanting to keep the big events because the community can attend those, and we thought that would be worth keeping. But I don't think the board asked it because just purely.
Oh, no, they
finances.
didn't.
There were, by the time they had to decide whether they were gonna do the Fourth of July or not, COVID was interfering, and they had to make commitments one way or another, and they said, we just don't even know how do you plan something?
They just know what the
restrictions were, so I just like to compliment the board on that, like, they didn't wanna have it, they just.
Because the guideline was not providing the safe gathering yet for
Right.
4th of July, but we did budget it for, that's why
Yes.
$128,000 budget for 2021, I think it's roughly about 78,000 for the 4th of July event, roughly.
Yeah,
I think it's
depending
close,
on
at
the
least,
deposit and everything.
yeah, I think close to $78,000. So we were very specific on what we're gonna spend for 2021 in regards to social events and the big spending for the 4th of July. But
Yes.
again, we didn't have guideline
Right.
until a week ago.
Right.
What happened in 4th of July, but I think that, do we put out notice or email message to let folks know that there will not be any 4th of July event? Do we need to? So because there's a lot of discussions coming up on the Facebook, and we don't need to do a mass mailing, but I think people are maybe thinking about now the CDC has lapsed the requirement, but we still, since we didn't have that plan, I just think the community need to know that there would not be a 4th of July event. But like Marsha said, we want to put decoration, I think we just need to get it for approve or disapprove whether those decorations will take place around our community.
Especially if we have money set aside for the fourth in the first place, maybe the decorations.
Yeah.
You're not gonna spend.
It will offset it, but you
decorations.
do have a line item already for decorations where it's all encompassing of that as well.
Right, what I'm saying is, we didn't spend it on July, so at the end of the year,
Balance.
we won't balance out, but it's okay to spend it on decorations if we're not spending it on.
The actual event.
And it is understandable, so there was COVID, they discussed that last board meeting as well, and that is understandable, but I just feel we should totally go over it.
Well, since we're on lifestyle events, I see these as a quality of life events that have existed in Providence for quite some time. At the last NAC meeting, which probably might have been the cart before the horse, there was a discussion about sending out a survey to all of the owners, listing the events and what portion of their assessment goes to each one of those events. I looked at the most recent survey information, thank you very much, and it is very generic. So what I propose, and this is really a prototype survey that be mailed out to all of the owners, listing specific events, their cost by month and annual, and what the proposed HOA budget would be. We asked people about social lifestyle events, and then they were talking about dollars of 240,000. Everyone said, wow, that's a lot of money. We need to find some way to reduce that. What proposals should we make to the board? And for the board to make decisions without receiving any significant input from the owners, they're really kind of going on personal preference rather than what the community actually wants. So if you take Sweetheart's Game Night, and again, I just picked these out of random. If you take the 8 cents times 12 times 5,600, it comes up to a little over $5,000 to propose that event. What would be beneficial is having the social lifestyles budget breakdown from 2019, where I believe it was probably close to $240,000. But I was on the committee for a short period of time, and at all the discussions on each one of those activities and events, not once was there any discussion about how much each one of those activities actually cost. So if you take a look at 4th of July as an example, I don't know, there were some people who were not owners in the Providence area, and they paid an admission fee and everything else. So I'm sure there was some income that offset the expenses. But for a family living in Providence to spend $12 for the year to continue having an event like the 4th of July celebration, I think everyone would be given that a very high rate. Some of the other activities that were that occurred during 2019 probably would receive the kind of support that the board would say, yes, we should continue with that activity. So given a line by line breakdown of each one of the activities, what it costs, what portion of the owners actually contribute towards that, and what the total budget may be, I think would give the board a lot more information in making decisions about future social lifestyle activities. So if you could send me that, I would be happy to prepare a more finalized version of this to present to the ENAC for their review, comments, and possibly finalize a survey that could go to the board for their review and approval, and hopefully submittal to the owners.
I mean, this is a very good detailed data, and we did discuss about monthly, how much it costs per household. But I do want to bring attention to the red, white, and blue. We didn't really spend $16,800. We made a donation of $7,000.
Oh, these are numbers that I just plucked out of the air.
Right, I know, yeah, but I just want to say that, and that we discussed in detail before we plan our budget for 2021, that it has to be an event, social event that is with don't cost the any community residents money for some of those social events, except for the 4th of July event. We know that's the most popular. They bring the family out to the event. It's been a popular event in Providence for many, many years. That we would like to continue that event.
Right.
Another issue that we also encountered, they are campers, and I've been here a little over 3 years and a couple months. I mean, 1 month. They are campers survey sent out to the residents. The most we get back is probably what, 30% of response rate.
Understand.
That. So we may not get major majority. I mean, I think we try so many different communication vehicles, whether it's email, blast, whether it's mailing, whether it's on those posts. We got very, very little response back from the residents. But I totally agree with you that breaking down by these, maybe we give more response back, since now we have no social events.
Right.
They may want to say, you know what, I want this event back. I want to have my saying, I live here, I pay HOA fees. I want to see this come back. So I think maybe it's another time, just give another try, because we now have no social events, and we can talk about how the CDC regulation has changed.
Right.
And we now have opportunity to resume back to some of the social events and what you can chat. Because for me, I don't have children. I like the quality of some of these social events happening in my community.
Right.
So that's the reason why I chose to live in Providence. And I also know that we are in the budget crunch for the last couple of years because we built a brand new park, cost us roughly $4.6 million. And I know $1.9 million came from the city of Las Vegas, but still, that was a big chunk of money that we did not plan for. We also, it's not we didn't plan for, we know it's coming, but we didn't really have the reserve money available for that park to build. But if we didn't build a park, we're not gonna get $1.9 million from the city, so you're kind of in a real tough position, what do you do? And now you also have the irrigation system coming about 13 years, 12 years, you need to replace. I mean, that's just part of living a community as this big in Providence. So now we have opportunity in 2020 to look at different budget allocation and bring us back to a much bigger position in Providence. So I think for last year and for this year, we're not going to spend a lot of those money. We have a good opportunity to resume that and keep the reserve very healthy.
Well, I'd like to add that somebody, when we went over the budget for the 2021, we went over this, you know, the community likes, everyone likes them, they're not bad things, but as a finance committee, we have to put the priorities first, and events fell down the priority list because we had the park to take care of. And we're in debt and we have reserves, so as a finance, we have to look at the black and white of the finances. So for these, what I understood was, it's not that we couldn't have these activities, but the residents need to pay out of pocket for them directly, instead of subsidizing the whole community, and then, okay, well, it only cost me 11 cents a month for the daddy daughter dance, but I'm not going, you know, and then after a while, it starts to add up, and I'm paying for things that I can't even attend, especially for like a daddy daughter dance, that you want 50, 60 people go, but you've got a community of 5,000 paying for it. So we talk about, let's not get rid of them, but if they have them, the residents need to pay for them out of pocket instead of making the whole community pay for it. So I think one time, I can't remember what activity it was, it was a social event, and then it was gonna, I can't remember how it was gonna.
Well, we had
pay
the
for it, and then
center, we had the center, I think pictures. It was only, you can only allow 50 or something like that, and then the whole entire community would have to pay for that event.
Right, and so it's like, let's go ahead and have the events, but the residents just pay for the tickets. Whatever the cost is gonna be for that event, divide it up in the ticket cost and have the event, but let those 60 people that wanna go pay for it. And then we decided that we wanted to keep the Star Spangled Banner and the hometown holiday, that one.
I think
because
the small
that can serve-
events.
That can serve a big chunk of the community easily, that's not, like, we didn't view it as quite subsidizing all benefits. Even the 4th of July one, which is super popular, you don't even have to go to it to enjoy it. I can enjoy it from my house, the fireworks, you know, like the whole community can enjoy it. So I think our approach to the events was, we don't want to get rid of them, but we've got to find a better way financially to be responsible, because we've got bigger, literally bigger financial issues we have to take care of, and every penny counts.
The board's decision was to not spend any money on social events. It wasn't not to have social events, it was that the social events needed to be paid for by other means other than the association paying for it.
Yeah.
Because right now, our reserve fund is $1 million short of being fully
I
funded.
understand that the reserve study recommends increasing the monthly contribution by $3,000 a month. We're saving $300,000 on security alone. I don't see the financial need to eliminate contributions from the HOA general operating fund for events that make Providence a more desirable place to live. So the savings from the security alone in 3 years will give you your $1 million that you're short on your reserve account. So to eliminate all the other social activities simply because there's budgetary pressures from reserves, I don't think, I'm not sure how many people within the community would support that position. That's one. And that's why I think the survey is important to get their feedback. And I'm sure some of the events like a couples paint night probably won't get nearly the support that would obtain board approval to continue funding that type of event. But to spend small amounts of money out of our general operating fund to make a better community for all, I think it's certainly well worth it. And that is information that the board currently doesn't have, but a very specific survey would be able to provide them with that information from the owners. And even if you only got 30% response, you're talking 1,500. I don't know how many people are going to go through and do the actual rating for 1,500 mail-in ballots, but it is information that is, I think, is very important for the board to have to make your decisions on future social events.
Well, I would be careful in saying eliminated. The events aren't eliminated, they're just being funded differently. So to say we asked it isn't really fair, just because that's not what we did, because we aren't going to subsidize it for the whole community. So the events are still there, we didn't eliminate them. So if you want to go and it costs $20 for a ticket, then people that want to go, and then people that care about service like this, they would pay the $20 a year because they said that to them. So that's great for them. I want them to go if they want to pay money for it.
But now for the 4th of July, I totally disagree. 4th of July event, they should not have to buy a $20 ticket for it. I pay my HOA fees to have a social life event. The 4th of July event is one of the most popular, so I agree with Larry. Let's get a survey report together, because that's the only tangible item that we have on the community feedback. Because we all know most people don't attend meetings because there is things going on in their life, myself included. You know, so you're not going to attend meetings, but let's get some tangible information out to the communities. Now we are cycle over a year without any social events. How is that impacting them as a resident of Providence? What would they like to see from the community event? So they could provide us feedback, and then we could evaluate based on those feedback and say, okay, guess what? They say it's not worth it to spend the money. But I also look at what we have done for 2020 budget. We're scrutinizing every single item. And I don't think anybody was saying we cancel the event, but we also need to, I am not paying for $20 for the event. So definitely not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So, but I think we need to, as a community, as a committee submitting to the board to say, you know what, let's get some feedback from the community. We are now get a guideline, we are able to have a gathering event. Let's think about what the community residents wanted. We also know that we are heading into a much healthier financial status in 2021. By default, also by a lot of efforts. By default, because we canceled so many events, we reduced so many costs for last year because of pandemic. But also for us to scrutinizing every line item in our expenditure. But for 2021 event or 2022 event, what we need to plan, I think we need to start thinking about, because I know the budget meeting is coming up in 2 months.
Oh, I can remember.
The budget meeting is coming up in 2 months already, in the back of my mind. So we really, this would be a very good tangible information from the community for us to plan for 2022.
And it would also be an indication whether or not the owners are willing to pay for those specific activities.
Exactly.
Otherwise the rating is going to be anywhere between 0 and 3. And if they have a willingness to have part of their HOA funds go towards that activity, then you'll see a higher rating. And that's all it is designed to do. Are they willing to pay for 4th of July? Are they willing to pay for red, white, and blue? Are they willing to pay for kids painting and flying their kites, that type of activity? And the ratings will tell you that right off the bat. And even if we only got 500, we're getting more feedback on specific activities and the owner's willingness to pay for it than we currently have as towards making their financial decisions.
Specific, really. You're totally right. Find somebody who's group specific. No, I don't want to go to mommy daddy because I don't have kids. But mommy daddy might not want to go to group or the night we had the comedy. I'll pay to go to that. That's my choice.
I understand.
But I think we should, as a community, Providence, my lord, I think we should be able to provide Star Spangled, whatever.
Yep.
That's why I think your survey is a great idea. I mean, you're right. People don't respond to surveys. I know that. Okay, but get a feel for something. Right now, everybody's making decisions for the good of the community, but we're in a tunnel. It's what, we think is for the good of the community, what the board thinks is good for the community. Why don't we touch the community and find out, even 300 people?
Exactly.
Better than we have now.
I know.
And still watch our costs. I mean, we are still saving, we can afford and still save money to do a Star Spangled. Now, we're off the hook this year, really, because of COVID.
Right.
Okay, we can pretty much see, or we can all blame it on COVID.
And I think ultimately with the revised security budget and a much lower social lifestyles budget, once we are able to feel more comfortable about the amount of money that's in the reserve account, then we would be able to roll back some of the quarterly assessments to all of the owners, and they would end up saving some additional money by eliminating some of the events, but keeping some of the events that they would like to see continue to be sponsored by the HOA in general.
If your survey's good, give it a shot.
Well, I'd like to add 2 things. That for a survey like, and I think that's a good idea. A survey of the community is not a terrible idea. I do think that's a good idea. But we have to make sure that the community understands the scope of what we're asking. Are you going to pay for this? But also remember that we have our reserves, the irrigation of the park, we're still paying for $1 that we still have to find. That wasn't corrected in 2021. Found savings, but we still have a long way to go. So if we send them a survey and say, are you willing to pay this? But also consider that we have this, and this, and millions of dollars that we need to pay for it, and if we don't get it taken care of, the reality is it's very likely that dues could go up again because we have to be able to cover them. And we're trying to avoid that. So what I would like to add, if we send a survey out, is we have to make sure that homeowners get the entire picture. So when they say, I'm willing to pay for this, but also consider that we also have to pay for this and this, this.
Right.
You can't just send out, do you want to have this candy? Oh yeah, I want this candy. Well, there's a cost associated, and this is not a straight cost. If we put money here, it has to come from somewhere else, and we don't have a lot of money to juggle around. And we're trying really hard to redirect money in some places. And I know that I get arguments from this all the time. We do not pay our HOA dues for events. We pay our HOA dues to maintain the community and the infrastructure of it. That is irrigation. That is part. By law, the board has to direct funds where it needs to go, and events are not in need. So to say I pay my HOA dues for the events is simply not true. It's just a surplus that we've been able to enjoy over the years, but we are in a very strained condition right now, and we've made a ton of progress. But if we start introducing the events back, $1,000 here, $1,000 here, the bottom line will get strained even further, and we don't want to do that. So the board, they have a responsibility to follow exactly what the law says, and that's the infrastructure of the community. That's the irrigation, that's the reserves, and that's the park. And we are uncomfortably strained on all of those. So if we do a survey like this and the community wants it, that's one thing, but at the end of the day, HOA dues are not supposed to go to events. They can, if we've got surplus and we want to add that to our community, I think that's great. But we've got more pressing needs for our community. We can't have an irrigation leak and also want to continue at the same time. We have to take care of one at a time. So if we send out a survey, I think it would be fair to try to get as much information to the community as possible so they understand the scope of why we're asking. So yes, we want to have this, but don't forget that we also have X, Y, and Z we have to pay for, and it's not $10 or $12 a month. It's millions of dollars we're trying to find over the course of a few years. This isn't an easy fix. We can't just hold it out of thin air.
Well, I think the committee has taken a very aggressive approach in trying to boost the amount of reserves, because again, the reserve study done by people who specialize in this type of reporting recommends that we increase our reserve contribution by $3,000 a month. Now, if you choose to be more aggressive in backfilling the balances of the reserve account, I went through every single year, and there's not a single year where from this year forward, all of that fund balance increases every single year until you get to the end of the report, where it is now at the recommended reserve balance. So if you want to get there in 3 years instead of 30 years, then you're making some sacrifices that I think have a tremendous negative impact on the people who live within
So I also want to talk about HOA. I know that we have to pay necessity, but I also purchased a home in Providence for some of the lifestyle event happening in Providence. I didn't just purchase here, just to live here, looking at some of the greenery. I know we have to budget for those events, but HOA fee is not only paid to just for those necessities. We have done in the past for many social life events, and we talk about this already. And it's like now we keep talking about the same thing over and over again. We discussed it in detail for 2021 budget that we do not need all the social life events, but we never say to eliminate entirely. So to say that, well, we're not allowed to pay this, we're not allowed to pay that, we got $1 million there, but we budget for those $1 million expenditure for reason. So Lori, let me just finish up, because we have responsibility to budget those expenditure. Whether, so now you have the irrigation system that you're gonna spend $1.7 million. Those gonna be what, 10 years? Because last for 13 years, we are getting much better, the PVC, the pipe compared to what we put in 13 years ago, 14 years ago. So their life it's gonna be last longer. So for the next 10 years, you're not gonna continue to spend $1 million.
No.
For the last year and a half, we have done a much better job, responsible for every single line item. And that's why it's time for the community to give us feedback. Is for a year and a half, they have no social event. They need to have their saying, what do they want when they live in this community?
I know, and to defer to us, we didn't ask them, that's COVID.
Oh, I know that.
Remember that, I mean, this last year and a half, I didn't say.
And I just say that, I said that earlier, because by default means
Right.
by COVID. So that's my point.
Please don't be honest, we didn't eliminate that, we just wanted to.
We eliminated from $224,000 to $128, we did eliminate it half. If
No,
you
the
recall.
lifestyle committee did that, didn't they?
No, we did it in 2021 budget.
I know the lifestyle.
We spent 2 hours sitting
Oh, we
here.
didn't realize we're spending so much money, and they came back with a reduced list.
They
Remember that?
did, but then we took
We
that.
took, yes, we
Well, and
did.
then we said if they wanna go, they can pay for it, it was not eliminated, they have to pay it. We just have a different route of paying for it, and then we decided to keep the bigger one because
Right.
they serve a majority
And
of
so, yeah, and I think just, to wrap it up, just to everybody's point, there is a budget for the larger scale events.
Yes.
Because you guys
Yes.
want those to happen, but the smaller scale events, homeowners that do want to participate in those specifically would be the ones to offset that cost.
Yes.
Because those are the ones that are specific to them that they want to participate in. But the lifestyle, the bigger ones, hometown holidays, Star Spangled Spectacular, Huckleberry Harvest,
House, yes.
those are the bigger ones that homeowners should not have to pay for, are sponsored through the HOA, and can have a better turnout just because it is something that everybody does want to participate in.
Exactly.
Now, because again, of default, because of COVID, we
That's what I
are.
Anything, we
There's
want
nothing
to
yet, so we just
happen.
can't put it on because of the percentages and all of that kind of stuff, and who's really going to be going around saying, put your mask up, you're not 3 feet apart. No, you can't. There's only 5 of us, so it's gonna be very difficult to do that when you have 9,000 people in a park. So I think, again, just to everybody's point, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Everybody has the great idea of what we want to do, and just to clarify, the large scale events are there. COVID is not allowing us to have them, but the smaller scale events, to your point of providing that survey, would give us a better budgeting aspect of 5 people want mommy, daddy, Mr. Dollar, so that's $50. Well, whatever, you know what I mean? And then that way we have a better idea of where funds need to not necessarily go, but what we need to budget for those 5 people that do say that they want to go out.
And I can edit a comment though, just
Yes,
on
I
this.
just noticed that activities is spelled.
But I think,
But wait a minute.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, in your last sentence on here, I would think seriously about not stopping your sentence at HOA budgets. I would kind of suggest maybe may result in lower future quarterly assessments. That's opening Pandora's box.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah,
I
That needs to
think
go.
that
Because
last
if anything,
part of
it'll
the
raise
sentence.
us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mention ancestors at all, because to lower them, I don't put that even in people's brains. Because I doubt that will happen, and even if it does, it would be so future.
Nice catch.
And that's opening Pandora's box. Whoa.
And I also think we need to start stating our current financial status. We have
46%.
40, how much money we still have the loans pending, right?
200,000.
Can you,
Can I
can you
just finish,
illustrate what
please?
the number is? When you say 46%, nobody knows what that means. So can you say,
It's-
this is how much we have, but this is what we still need? And the reserve is important because the irrigation should have come out of reserve, correct?
Right now, we're at $170,000 for the Providence Reserve. With the Easton Place and Oxford Common Reserves, it's total on the financials like 1.35 million or something like that. But that includes Oxford Commons and Easton Place, which their reserves should be accounted for separately.
That's separate.
So out of Providence Reserves, we have $870,000. We're supposed to have 2 million.
2 million, and that's,
So-
that's just reserves.
Right,
And we still have irrigation to pay for.
right.
And a park loan paying out.
$200,000,
$1,000 of
yeah.
interest every month.
I'm already starting on my next treasurer's report for the next meeting. My last one, I was getting a little burned out, a little frustrated, so I didn't do as big of one as the one before. But I'm going to be doing, I'm gonna be doing more spreadsheets and more, this is what we've spent so far, this is what these are the items we've overspent on this year, these are the items we've underspent on. This is what we could do, I'm gonna do more of that. But right now we're at $200,000, over $200,000 for the loan, and then our reserves are $1 million short still, so.
So that's why I say if we send out the survey to start stating
Right,
the current financial status of our communities,
right,
how much that we borrowed $450,000, so we are now down to 220.
Right.
So by 50% in very short time, just by making those very responsible decisions on reducing many costs for the last few months. So our goal is still to pay off that current debt, and then we're gonna start putting more money into the reserve fund. And we already budgeted for irrigation system replacement. We already budgeted for that, right?
Not necessarily budgeted for.
Right.
Because there was
Not
no
really.
indication of knowing.
It's a 5 years plan that we put in for the budget for the replacement of the irrigation system.
The reserve, so the new reserve study put in they put in one phase for the next 5 years.
Right,
The board actually voted to do
Reduce
2
to 3
phases
years.
this year and then 2 phases next year, and then we'll be done.
right.
So that actually fast tracked everything, so that means more money's gonna be coming out of
Right.
reserves this year and next year. But we're doing that because the water leaks and trying to get
Exactly,
that.
so we
stuff fixed.
expedited the process, the 5 year plan into 3 year or 2.5 year because
Right.
of the water consumption.
Right,
So that is gonna come out more money, but we did have budget specifically that we know it's gonna come out.
it was
for
supposed to come over,
irrigation.
it was supposed to come out the next 5 years, but it's
Right.
coming out the next 2.
And now we expedited, so now we have to put more money into that budget to
Right,
support the irrigation replacement.
Right.
So
And
now-
to replace the reserve for irrigation.
Well, that's why you're not gonna be able
Allocate
to
those
put in
funds.
more money into reserve, because that's the money you're gonna have to spend on the replacement of the irrigation system. So we did have 5 year plan, now we wanna expedite it to 2.5 years.
Right.
So that by 50% speed up, you now have to take more money out of the reserve to pay for that cost.
Right, and
right,
then-
which means we have to put more money back in, yeah.
Exactly, yes,
Yeah.
that's, so we need to spell it out when we send out the survey to say these are the pending item for expenditure for us.
Right,
And these are the event that, what would you would like to see, so that way they have an entire picture of why we done some of the things we did, some by default, but what we're gonna do moving forward, because our budget year's planning is coming up in June. Right, so a couple months, we're gonna do our budget, so your feedback is very essential for us to plan 2022. So I think if we
Make sure
put
they
that,
understand the entire scope. of
yes,
what we're
absolutely,
looking for.
totally,
What our
totally.
current financial, what our current cash on the hand is and what our future obligations or current obligations are, so that they can get a much better picture rather than just,
Exactly.
yes, I
Mini
want the candy, I want the
forecast.
birthday presents, I want the Christmas
Yes,
presents,
yes,
and forget about the rest of the stuff.
right,
Right.
right,
Just a mini
exactly.
forecast of where we are, and
Yeah.
what we have to do.
Okay.
And then that's fair.
All right, that's a very good discussion. Let's move on to the next item, open comment period.
I just wanted to know when we were gonna schedule the budget meeting, because that's not a 45-minute meeting, that's a. we sit here for a
So
whole
I've
while.
already requested the template through VMS, so I'm gonna start plugging in numbers.
Okay.
Realistically, I wanna have June to myself just to put everything where it needs to go and start July for our budgeting process, which will then provide us with a good amount of time to kind of work out things, July, August, at least get the board a draft of what the committee is recommending, and then hopefully solidifying the budget no later than September.
That would be nice.
And I also have questions. We always use OneNote.
So with Tasha, yeah, I know. I
It's
got
been
an
a
email
year,
from
and we have
Board
OneNote base.
I don't have access to Tasha's OneDrive, and that's where everything is stored at. I have everything moved over to the network, but it won't sync with my OneDrive because I need her password in order to do that. So I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty right now, just trying to get everything synced, but hopefully, they're saying that I need her password in order to have it synced. I'm trying to find a workaround.
Yeah,
So I'm working on that. So hopefully by our next meeting, I will have
we
OneNote.
need to
synced up
resume
to-
that one. It's just so much easier for me to go through all the reports right there.
Right, I understand.
Sending out email attachment, it's just not, we've been doing OneNote for so long, and then we pretty much started for a year and a half now. I've been asking for it.
I'm working on it too, I know.
Thank you. I know this transition, so I get it. Any other open item?
Yeah, I have a question. Where did the board end up with the reamortization? I know that had been discussed, and the residents, but, gave their 2 cents.
And we talked about it, but we voted not to do it, because I would personally like to get the loan paid off sooner rather than later. So we talked about it and we decided not to do it because if we continue to put money towards the loan, then we may end up having to do it again. And you get to I cannot say that word, thank you. You get to do it once free a year, and then if you do it a second time, then you have to pay money towards it. So we decided to wait on that to see if we're able to put any more money towards it this year.
Any other questions?
Yeah. While I'm at it. At the board meeting, I was rather outspoken about that, we approved, the finance committee approved the preliminary financials to go on to the board. And recommended they approve. We are 6 months, I guess, behind in the board approval. And like I said, I became quite outspoken about it. Because what purpose do we serve as a committee if we approve tentatively? Now, they're preliminary statements. We all know that until they go to the auditors and they issue a certified public opinion, then we're sealed, okay? But even the board is not even approving the preliminaries to go on. Now, everybody's hoping, I think, that anything will come out in the audit, but that defeats this whole purpose. If you're waiting for the auditors to find the errors, what are we doing? Okay, we spend our time reviewing statements. We say, okay, board, these are the changes that need made. Katie puts hers, and everybody did, but they're still sitting there. And I was really pissed off.
So what was the response from the?
None. But as a committee, I did not speak for the committee. I spoke for myself. Okay, so I didn't put any of you out there.
I don't care.
But I was
I
not.
never cared before, do you think I care now?
Coming from an accounting background, that is, no, okay? I just kind of would like to know what the hell's going on.
So Felicia and I are still working on a bunch of the financials. They're not being done correctly. And I do this every day. I put together HOA financials every day. This is what I've done for the last 9-10 years. And
That's what I did for 30 years.
Yeah,
So you're not alone.
Exactly.
So you know, my budget was $1.5
Right.
million.
She's got a HOA specialty.
yeah, this is, I mean, HOA financials all
I know, but we all know
Yeah.
financial report is right and left, you
But-
balance the
the
budget.
problem-
Getting off topic.
The problem is that if the board approves it, then CCMC can't go back and fix the things that I'm finding that say, hey, this needs to get fixed. So and the other thing is too, is that if I know that they're incorrect, I can't recommend that we approve them. So I'm trying to get this stuff fixed, which is why we voted to get an accounting person into the office so that these reports can be done correctly. The reserve statement for October, November, December, January, and February were actually incorrect. And if we approve them, then they can't go back and give us the correct statements.
Why do
So,
we have 2,000 for last year sitting there? There were 3 months from last year sitting there.
yeah, because the income statements weren't done correctly.
Right.
So that's why we didn't approve them. And I haven't seen actually, I had not gotten updated ones.
But
So
that
that's
is
something that we need to do too.
inexcusable that the previous year,
I agree with you.
it is.
I agree with you. I agree with
But
you.
what are we gonna,
They
somebody
should be
had.
being done right.
Acceptable,
Yeah.
exactly.
I agree with you. They should be being done right, and it shouldn't be 6 months later that we still haven't gotten corrected ones.
We're trying to tell the community we're being fiscally responsible, yet we've got 6 months of unapproved financials. As a community resident, I am a community resident, I'm a board. I mean, granted, I'm an accountant background, but that's ridiculous. You're sitting here telling me I can't have a social event committee because I'm watching your money, but you cannot have financials approved, right? I don't know if it's CCN, I don't care whose fault it is. Okay, this is not a blame game. To me, we're talking out both sides of our mouth. We as a committee are sitting here saying, okay, make this change, fine and good. We're assuming it's being done. We're saying, board, please approve our preliminary approval of the preliminaries. And we've got last year sitting there. Unacceptable.
I agree with you.
So the board needs to do something instead of just,
I'm working on it.
it's not,
I'm
it
working
should
on
not
it.
be your responsibility only.
I
There
know.
was a treasurer before you. And if you're going back into so much minutia detail, granted, we're used to huge budgets, billions of budgets.
I know.
Okay, that's different. This is not that grandiose though of a budget.
I know.
Yes,
Somebody
yeah,
somewhere has got to get their act together.
exactly.
So see, I'm getting as angry now as I
I
did when
totally
I
agree with you,
reported.
Marsha, I totally agree with you. There is no reason for us, and we meet every single month.
Yeah,
And
what
we
do
talk
do?
about the same thing over and over again, we're talking about 2 cents. So I agree, I totally feel your frustration, totally.
I just had no idea it was that until I went to the board meeting. I did not realize we had last year sitting there.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
I know,
the
every
audit-
month we get it,
The
they
audit
won't
is,
approve the report.
the audit is being done now. But again, how can we have, my accounting firm didn't do that. How can we have auditors do and approve a financial and send a certified public opinion when we internally have them sitting on the books? I don't get that.
I don't either, to be honest with you. I was actually.
I would
surprised
question
that-
the
yeah.
accounting firm. Okay.
The accounting firm is actually, so the Hilburn and Lean, Gary Lean is actually does a lot of the classes for community association managers, and he used to be on the commission. So and I've actually had some conversations with him, so he's very reputable and very well known. I actually did not realize that it was already, I mean, I'm sure you knew it, but I didn't actually realize that that the stuff was already sent to the accounting firm for the audit. But it's a work in progress. I'm working on it. And I feel your frustration because I'm getting frustrated too. And
It's the resident,
Yeah.
it's not just mine. I mean, I'm one of the thousands. As another resident, I'm sorry, I would be upset. You know,
I
we're speaking
would
on
understand that,
two
yeah.
sides, and then I wonder what we're doing. We're sitting here, minutiae, breaking this down, asking for explanation for this. And then it's this. And we're not the be-all, end-alls here. Supposedly, the board is. So I just kind of like those questions answered, is where and who is really promoting fiscal responsibility? Or fiscal, sorry, not fiscal. Fiscal. Yeah, physical. No, fiscal responsibility. We can't tout it that we're doing it and having it. Granted, I'm a very black and white person, but there's not even a gray in that one. So I put it, again, that's an infinite question, obviously. It's one of these no answers, but damn it, there's gotta be an answer here.
So you said that we have the firm working on those now,
Yes, 2020.
that it's just a matter of time
2020.
before they finalize their evaluations and submit a finalized.
They're submitting it, Larry. We should be we're the first step. The board is the second step. Sitting there that the board has not approved preliminaries. We're putting the onus on the accounting firm, totally. So where does our responsibility come in? Granted, people, we're paying the accounting firm. I heard that one. But where does our responsibility come in? What are we doing? What is the board doing to answer to the community? Yes, we can assure you, but we're watching this. That's where I'm coming from. I know that the public accounting firm will do it. Why are we letting them do it? Why aren't we able to approve tentatively preliminary? I'm just asking for approval of preliminary. I'm not asking to take it down in gold. That is the accountants. That's what it comes from us. We can't, they're sitting on the minutes of the board from last year. I'm done. I had to tell you guys that I did speak out, but didn't put any of you on the thing. I was speaking totally from myself, my own point of view.
We're paying attention, we're watching, and we want it done correctly.
Well, I just would
I
like
think
to.
we all do, you
I would like
know,
some
but
answers.
again, it's very irresponsible to have
It's
6 months
irresponsible.
preliminary reports still sitting pending for approval. Almost like my bank won't send me a statement for 6 months, my personal bank statement, because they have not finalized their dollar and cents yet.
Because they can't approve them once they're done correctly, so somebody needs to get.
Well, somebody needs to get their
But
act
how
together
can-
and then
how-
talk about why they have error, but not 6 months later.
But how can we tell the residents? How, if we can't get it balanced ourselves, who gives the board or us or anybody the right to tell the residents, we're watching your funds? We really are. We've got this expense and this expense and this huge expense, and we know that, but hey, we're good. It's accountability, and I'm a big accountability person. I'm from that era. We are all accountable. Like I said, that is an infinite question. And obviously, there's no answer to it, but I thought you all should be aware that they're sitting there.
Oh, I know that, because we haven't approved anything yet,
No,
since last year.
Okay.
So, I have to head out, because my babysitter's.
Oh, no.
So are we okay for the next meeting for June 28th
What is it, change for me?
on Monday? Is Monday work on good for everybody?
Yes,
It's 9 o'clock to be good?
yes.
Okay. So, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, second then?
My second.
Okay. And then all in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. This is a great discussion. Thank you.
Welcome to the
Meeting adjourned.
What time are we doing it?